We are recording.
Okay, we'll call our meeting to order. And first thing is the roll call. Manager Waller.
Yes, I'm present.
Manager Wynant.
Here.
Manager Bradley.
Here.
Manager Wagaman.
Here.
And Manager Priner here. Next thing is to set the agenda. Any additions or removals today?
Yes, President Priner, we have a couple of adjustments. Under items requiring board action from our workshop direction, that should be updated to include Anoka County.
Okay.
We had Washington, so we'll add Anoka. An updated memo was shared with the managers, also available to the public as well. Also, under items for discussion and information, we'll have a new number 1, which was our stormwater infrastructure construction and management item that also was on the workshop. We'll move it over here.
Okay, anybody else? Now I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move we adopt the agenda as edited here.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? We have a roll call. Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Wynant.
Yes.
Manager Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Wagaman.
Yes.
And Manager Priner. Motion passes. Approval of the minutes.
Madam Chair, I move approval of the March 24th, 2021 Rice Creek Watershed District regular meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Now we'll call the vote. Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Wynant. Manager Wynant.
Yes.
Manager Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Wagaman.
Yes.
And Manager Priner, yes. Next thing is the consent agenda today.
You want to do the vote?
You can do the vote, yes. Go ahead.
Do you need to do a roll call vote on that? The minutes?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did we do that?
We
Oh,
got first and second.
we got a first and second. We need a vote. Okay, Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Wynant.
Yeah.
Manager Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Wagaman.
Yes.
And Manager Priner, yes. Motion passes. Now we can do the consent agenda. Any comments on the
President,
consent?
Three
Mark.
applications presented without comment.
Okay.
So, Madam President, I have a question about, it's not on these specific ones, but we had tabled 21-004, and I was curious if we could at some point get a status report on that.
Let's do that after.
Okay.
Seeing no discussion, I'll call ask for a motion on that. On the consent agenda.
Madam President, I move to approve the consent agenda, cap rocking permit number 20-073, 21-018, and 21-020.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call. Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Wynant.
Yes.
Manager Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Wagaman.
Yes.
And Manager Priner, yes. Motion passed. Okay, the next thing is our program cluster.
Madam President, could I get an
Go ahead.
update on status of project 21-004 that we had significant discussion on and sort of tabled?
Could President Priner, if
Go ahead.
I could interrupt, did I lose my way? We just approved the permits on consent agenda, but perhaps not the water quality grant. Is that correct?
We did not do the water quality grant yet.
Okay, and so then to Manager Bradley's question, certainly we could answer that now,
Okay.
if you like. Patrick, would you like to do that?
Certainly. Yes, Manager Bradley, rest of the board. Yes, the application 21-004, we did move forward and conditionally approve that at the last meeting. That did add a new condition of that approval that that landowner would be notified, supplied the plan set, the WACA decision, those sorts of items. So we did send that conditional approval notice out after the meeting, but I haven't heard anything from that landowner since.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the water quality grant. Any questions on that? It's supposed to be a consent also. Lauren, anything new to add? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Okay,
So, Madam President, I'll move that the Water Quality Grant Program Cost Share Application R21-06 be approved.
I will second that.
we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Manager Waller,
Yes.
Manager Winant. Marcy?
Yeah.
Okay, Manager Bradley,
Yes.
Manager Wagaman,
Yes.
and Manager Priner, yes. Open mic, is there anybody in the audience that'd like to comment today? Anybody in the audience? Hearing none, we're going to move to items requiring board action. Consider White Bear Lake Local Water Management Plan. Okay, go ahead, Lauren.
Good morning, President Priner, Board of Managers. For your consideration today is the City of White Bear Lake Local Water Plan. In your packets, you'll find a draft resolution on page 62, the executive summary and identified issues on page 64, and the city's implementation plan table on page 60, starting on page 65. Now, I'm going to share my screen here in a moment. Let me know if you can't see it. Okay, there we go. The City of White Bear Lake submitted their local water plan to all agencies for formal agency review on November 13th of last year. The district reviewed the plan for consistency with the district's watershed management plan and Minnesota Rules 8410 and Minnesota Statute 103B 235. And the district and Met Council submitted comments on the plan. The city's final draft submitted to the district on April 7th of this year sufficiently addresses all comments and is now consistent with district and state requirements. The city has identified several water resource issues within the district, including stormwater runoff management, which covers stormwater runoff rate and volume control, stormwater runoff quality and localized flooding, and then lake, stream, and wetland management. I've included on this slide here the watershed management organization boundaries for your reference that are within the city. And we are the purple color in the northeast and east portions of the city. The city has also listed that they are a regulated MS4 on the Bald Eagle Lake TMDL, the Peltier and Centerville Lake TMDL, the Upper Mississippi River Bacteria TMDL, the Twin Cities Metro Chloride TMDL, and then the South Metro Mississippi TSS TMDL. To address these issues, the city has identified many projects on page 65 in your packets. Notably, the city would like to partner with the district on water quality and stormwater volume reduction projects. The city would like to continue working with the district on adding rate control and volume control practices in conjunction with the city's street and parking lot reconstruction projects, which includes adding curbside or curb cut rain gardens in residential areas, which is numbered 1.4 on this slide here and in the table on page 65. This also includes conversion of alleyways to pervious pavement, which is number 1.2 in the table and on this slide here. Additionally, the city would like to, or the city plans to retrofit manhole structures to White Bear Lake, which is number 1.7 in the table and on this slide here, and add stormwater treatment to city parking lots, such as the Matoska Park parking lot, which are numbers 1.8 and 1.9 on the table. The district did recently approve cost share funding for project number 1.8 through the Stormwater Management Grant Program to install rain garden turrets to the Matoska Park parking lot. The last project I'll highlight is on page 67, number 2.5, which is on the bottom of the slide here. The city would like to, or the city plans to assist the district in a partnership with the White Bear Lake Area High School North Campus and Minnesota Water Stewards to incorporate stormwater treatment opportunities that were identified in the South Bald Eagle Lake Urban Stormwater Retrofit Analysis Report. District staff did have initial conversations with the school last year, and we hope to continue having those conversations with them in the next few months. To conclude, staff find that the City of White Bear Lake's local water plan is consistent with district and state statutes. Staff recommends approval of the City of White Bear Lake's local water plan as submitted to the district on April 7th of this year. Are there any questions for me on this one?
Madam President,
Go
if I
ahead.
could ask Lauren, so they've got pink colored and green colored and white colored. What's, can you tell us what the relevance of that is?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties. Can you repeat that, Manager Bradley?
Certainly, the document you sent to us is color coded, but I couldn't find a code that explained the coloring.
Are you referring to the table, the CIP table color coding?
Yeah. Pink, green, and white.
The green are the low priority projects, and then the red is high priority. And I believe, I know I saw that there was a legend somewhere. I think it was towards the end of the table.
I accept your explanation as my legend. Thank you.
Any other questions for Lauren? If not, we do have a resolution on page 62.
Madam President, I would move resolution 2021-05, which approves the White Bear Lake Water Management Plan submitted on April 7, 2020.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? We'll go with a roll call. Manager Waller,
Yes.
Manager Winant,
Yes.
Manager Bradley,
Yes.
Manager Wageman,
Yes.
and Manager Kreiner, yes. Motion passes. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Madam President, before Lauren leaves, where does this leave us in terms of status of the various, reports still to be reviewed?
Sure. Manager Bradley, President or Board of Managers, this is the 25th plan that has now been approved. And so we have 3 more plans to go. One plan is almost ready to be presented to the board, and we'll hopefully see that soon.
Good.
We're almost there.
Yeah, that's really good news. Thank you. Anything else for Lauren? If not, we're going to go to the 2020 District Financial Report and Audit. That'd be Nick.
Yes. President Preiner, Board of Managers, on page 86 of your packet starts this agenda item on the District Financial Report and Audit. I'll provide a clarification within the memo. It does note that the materials are sent to the Commissioner of the DNR once completed, but that is not the case. That is specific to the district's annual report, not the audit itself. Those 2 items fall under the same state rule, and they may be combined at the discretion of the district, but we're not doing that here. We're just looking at the audit. The district held with Redpath and Company an exit meeting of our financial report and audit. Manager Wegman, as treasurer, was present and did participate in that meeting along with Teresa and myself. Within the audit document, which was in your packet and also shared with you, are a number of embedded letters, as well as the loose one with a communication to those in charge of governance. In summary, I'll note that there was a number of items of good news there. They had no difficulties in dealing with the management and staff and completing the audit. No disagreements on the matters that they were reviewing. No concerns on district legal compliance such as contract bidding, deposits, or the district's investments. They identified no deficiencies in internal control. And with the limits of their audit, in regards to those things, the financial statements do fairly present the financial position of the district, and we are in good standing. So no material concerns. So my thanks to all the staff for working on that, specifically Teresa and certainly Manager Wagaman as treasurer. With that, staff would recommend acceptance of it and filing. There's a motion on page 86. Happy to entertain any questions on the matter or anything Manager Wagaman would like to share.
The only thing that I would like to say is this, I think this was my 10th audit or 9th or 10th. And every single one of them has been the same. There's been no findings, no issues whatsoever. So I would back up everything Nick said and just kudos to the staff again and to you guys that are working on it. That's pretty impressive, I think.
Do you want to make that motion?
Sure, I'll make the motion. Madam President, I move to accept and authorize the filing of the Rice Creek Watershed District 2020 Annual Financial Report and Audit.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, we'll call the vote. Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Wynant.
Yeah.
Manager
Yes.
Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Wagaman.
Yes.
And Manager Priner, yes. And thank you to everybody that worked on that also.
Is this an area where Teresa should get special thanks? I mean,
I think so, yeah.
Yes.
so
Yep.
Teresa,
Come on,
you're
Teresa.
somewhere in the room there. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. You're welcome. Thank you. Citizens Advisory Committee appointments. We changed that to our new documents as of yesterday. Is Beth out there? Is it?
I am. Good morning.
She is? Ooh.
I was just waiting my turn. Good morning, President Priner. Good morning, board. Thank you for having me here. This is a good day for us and the Citizen Advisory Committee. After your board workshop on Monday, we modified the memo, and you have that in front of you. And so today we're going to hopefully be able to take care of the appointments for the last 2 vacancies on the advisory committee for both Washington County and the vacancy in Anoka County. As we discussed on Wednesday, Peter Larson has attended some CAC meetings. He's been interviewed by staff. He was interviewed by Manager Waller, and the board's direction was to bring him to this meeting with a motion to be appointed to the CAC. In addition, after some discussion on Monday, you directed staff to contact the Anoka County applicants, as well as modifying the motion today, the motion today to have Puneet Vidi represent Anoka County on the Citizen Advisory Committee. And that is what you see before you. So are there any questions?
Any questions for Beth? That will entertain a motion.
Well, Madam President, I'll move that we nominate Mr. Peter Larson as a representative from Washington County, and Mr. What's he pronounce his name? I'm sorry. Forgive me. Vedi, was it Vedi?
Puneet Vidi.
Puneet Vidi, yes. Thank you. To represent Anoka County on the Citizens Advisory Committee for 2021.
Madam President, I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this? Any further discussion? Any questions for Beth? Seeing none, we're going to go to the vote. Manager Waller,
Yes.
Manager Wynant,
Yes.
Manager Bradley,
Yes.
Manager Wagaman,
Yes.
and Manager Briner, yes. And clap, clap, clap.
Yeah. I was here going, yay!
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. We're full.
Yes. And a final update on that, the CAC, under the direction of Bridget Osborne, and we did recently do a survey of the members. And so we have so many new members. I think Manager Wagaman kind of heard some of this feedback last week. We're going to do some separate onboarding and training for the newer members, some extra kind of separate meetings to get them understanding Rice Creek and our dual focus on public drainage and volume control, as well as water quality. And then we're also going to have them do a self-guided tour of the watershed until we can all get together in person again. So really, pardon?
Doing that just with the new members? Are you incorporating the older one? It doesn't hurt to revive everybody's thoughts.
The new member training is specific, like the new member meetings are going to be just for the new members, but the self-guided tour and some of the additional information that we're providing is going to be for everybody. Mm-hmm.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna we've got some really great tools that we can use to provide them with additional information.
Can I suggest that when you do the self-guided tour materials, you send them to me also?
I'd be happy to do that. I'll send them to all of you. Mhm.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Yes, I'd like to see it.
So wonderful.
Very good. Well, thank you, Beth, again.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
You
Yeah.
too.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Check registers, Steve.
Madam President, I move to approve the check register dated April 14th, 2021 in the amount of $46,026.63 prepared by Redpath and Company.
I
I'll
would
second
second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Manager Waller,
Yes.
Manager Wynant,
Yes.
Manager Bradley,
Yes.
Manager Wagaman,
Yes.
and Manager Priner, yes. Motion passes. We pay the bills. Okay. Number one, we changed on items for discussion. You want to update on that? Stormwater.
Yes. President Priner, Board of Managers, you'll have a short presentation here on stormwater infrastructure, construction and management. This is in part response to Manager Wynant's interest in all the construction on the north side of 109th near the district offices. Patrick and Terrence have prepared something for you all.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Could
Nick.
I,
Yeah.
just sorry to interrupt, Patrick. President Priner, do the rest of you see if Marcy is still on, or did we have a technical?
Oh, wait a minute.
I see her at the bottom.
Button's
there.
There she is. Okay.
You
Thank
haven't been able to hear me this morning, have you? No.
Yeah, we've seen you.
Okay,
You just disappeared momentarily.
Okay,
all right.
thank you. Just wanted to clarify.
Thanks for checking in. Yeah. Okay, guys.
Okay, Board of Managers, yes. So this agenda item here is a follow-up on the comments and questions that were made by Manager Wynant at the March 24th board meeting. The comments, as we understand them, related to stormwater BMPs and their long-term maintenance. And the comments arose from the development work that is kitty corner from the Rice Creek office. That project is known as the North Meadows project. The North Meadows project is a 100+ acre residential and commercial development that was permitted in 2020 and does include many stormwater BMPs and other ponding areas. So I will briefly run through the district's typical front-end application review, and then Terrence will speak to inspection and compliance side of the permit application process, and then we can answer any questions and discuss further as needed. So first, a broken record here, but when a new project is being developed in the district, staff strongly encourage pre-application meetings with either myself or Anna, Kelsey, or potentially a representative from Houston Engineering as well. In the pre-application meeting, it's an opportunity to not only discuss the applicant's intentions, but for the district to share critical information that should be considered as the plans are being finalized. This information may include location of wetlands, location of the public drainage system, floodplain elevations, and the district-wide model and its availability through license agreement. Once an application is submitted, Anna in our office does review for completeness. And when the application is deemed complete, it is then reviewed in greater depth by either RCWD staff or Houston Engineering, depending on the rules triggered and the complexity of the project. So to show some of this, I'm going to share my screen here. Should work. Okay, everybody can see that, hopefully.
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is, I took our Rule C for stormwater management, and I did kind of pare it down a little bit so that we would, have some of the relevant items here for the discussion. And I'm, not going to go into great detail here, but, the first piece here is the regulation. So the district starts requiring stormwater management, typically around that 10,000 square feet threshold. That is for, private development. And then, as you might recall, in our rule revision, we did the update here for public linear projects. That's now up to an acre. So when folks have that project that has that much impervious surface, new or reconstructed, they then have to consider our water quality treatment standard. So you see the two different equations here. The first one is for, that private non-public linear development. And then the other here is for the public linear projects, new impervious, new and reconstructed. So this, tells them how much water quality treatment they will need to provide for their project. Moving further on in section C of the rule, you do see table C1 here. Infiltration is required first and foremost in any district application. If folks are unable to provide infiltration, based on soil types, those sorts of things, then they are allowed to, propose something different to meet that obligation. So these other ones are shown here in the table. The rest of, I guess I included E here as well. This just talks about, how much of the site needs to be treated, the effort that needs to be put in to, provide that total phosphorus removal. And specific to our discussion here, I also wanted to include section 9 on design criteria. This clearly shows the need for any of these basins to be maintained in perpetuity. Our private developers must record a declaration on their property title that will run with the property if there's new owners, those sorts of things. And our public projects, they certainly can record on the property title, but it's much more common that they will just enter into a signed maintenance agreement, or some of our cities, and I think one of our counties, have gone through a programmatic agreement. Then they don't have to do an individual agreement every time they have a new project. So I just wanted to highlight those few parts of the rule there for Rule C. So then once, the application has demonstrated that the rule criteria are met, the application is either noticed to the Board of Managers for that 48-hour comment period and administrator approval, or it is brought before a board meeting like on the consent agenda today. The applicant needs to then submit any conditional approval items that are still outstanding. That would include that stormwater maintenance obligation. And then the permit can be issued and the relevant RCWD inspector is notified. So in this case, for the North Meadows project, that inspector was Terrence.
Could I ask you a question, Patrick?
Certainly.
You said one of the counties have gone through a programmatic approval. Is that something we should encourage the other counties to go through so that it doesn't happen every time there's a project?
Yeah, it's something we've mentioned to some other folks, other cities and things. Yeah, I think it can be a time savings. Then when you come through with a new project, you already have the agreement in place, and then they just make their intention clear that they want to include these new basins into that agreement.
Well, maybe we should put that on our next city-county meeting.
Sure.
And reinforce the idea.
I like it.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Terrence.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So kind of building off of what Patrick has already discussed, I did want to make a note of, I know Patrick mentioned conditional approval, and oftentimes things are pretty smooth, but every once in a while there might be an applicant or an applicant group or team that assumes that their permit is issued, but is actually just in conditional approval. So in those instances, I will oftentimes get involved and kind of help the applicant to understand what the remaining items are to get that permit into a issuance state. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen every once in a while. And, it's just a matter of working with them to help them understand what is remaining on that list of conditional approval items. So, once the cap rock items are complete, then the permit's issued. I am going to share my screen here and there, so let me know if you can't see anything. So when a permit is issued, the applicant is sent and their team is sent the permit, and typically a city is CC'd on those emails, but then the regulatory team does include this inspector introduction letter, which you can hopefully see here. And within that letter, it kind of just highlights some of the important things that the applicant and their team should be considering going into the construction phase. I think the most important thing on here is the special stipulations. A lot of our permits, the most common special stipulation is the as-built requirement. So someone says they're going to build a certain stormwater pond on the landscape, and in order to meet our rules and show compliance, they have to provide as-built survey information of that particular pond or basin. We'll review those as-built survey information and then confirm compliance. So this is something that typically does get shared when the permit is issued, and then kind of moving along in a perfect sense. And it doesn't happen for every single project, but ideally it would. There's oftentimes pre-construction meetings, and Rice Creek Watershed District inspectors will certainly try to attend those meetings when possible. During those meetings, it's a good opportunity for us to establish strong relationships with the applicant's team and the contractor that's going to be involved with the project. We do a lot of schedule coordination during those meetings, so we'll learn about when project is anticipated to start. And there's also oftentimes utility subcontractors there that, they'll have their discussions about utility work and things like that. And then also there's usually a multitude of other regulators in those meetings. For example, I was just at a pre-construction meeting yesterday virtually, and it was a city road project, but there was also a county representative there. There was also a MnDOT representative there. So it kind of depends on the project, obviously, but a lot of times there's quite a few folks in those meetings, and it's good to start to establish those relationships. You'll get the contact information and things like that. A lot of times Rice Creek Watershed District inspectors will ask a question about dewatering, because that is oftentimes something that is kind of not always relevant on the surface of the proposed plans. The DNR does issue appropriations permits for projects that are looking to dewater. I think it's exceeding a certain amount of gallons of water per minute, and oftentimes the DNR will include us on those permit application, or they'll send us or request comments from the different agencies, and oftentimes we will make comments when an applicant or contractor is looking to discharge water into our public drainage system. So I think it's important to kind of bring up the dewatering during those pre-construction meetings and learn about how the contractor is looking to do the project, and learn about how they're going to make sure that they're discharging clean water to the ditch or to a wetland or anything like that. And then moving along, after the pre-construction meeting, then we go into the construction phase, where Rice Creek Watershed District inspectors will review the site sediment erosion control BMPs. We'll make sure that the silt fence is functional, biologs, review construction entrances, and then also focus on site stabilization. Depending on if the site is in close proximity to impaired waters, they will need to either stabilize the site within 14 days of inactivity versus 7 days for the sites that are in those close proximity to impaired waters. And then again, focusing on dewatering, I'll show a photo pretty soon here of some things that I try to utilize when reviewing dewatering during construction. And then also, again, coordinating with other regulators, Rice Creek Watershed District inspectors always CC a city representative when we send out inspection reports for projects. We try to let the cities know if there's reoccurring issues that happen. And then in a perfect world, we do have meetings oftentimes with a city representative and maybe a contractor to discuss some reoccurring issues and come to solutions. Other big thing that we're reviewing during construction phase is the Stormwater Bmps, for example, making sure that there's soil stabilization once those Bmps have reached their final grade. Then adequate BMP protection for those stormwater BMPs. A lot of times infiltration basins, once they reach final grade, they do have to be heavily protected to reduce the amount of potential sediment that can go into those basins that will then lead to them not functioning properly. Moving into the post-construction, again, I touched on special stipulations. We review special stipulation completion. A lot of times, the most common one, again, is the as-built survey requirement, but there's also a variety of other special stipulations, such as buffer monument installation. So we'll make sure that the applicant says they're going to put in these buffer monument signs for a WMC buffer, and we'll review that and make sure that they've done that per their approved plan. And then moving into when the permit's being closed, again, Rice Creek Watershed District's inspectors will remind the applicant and landowner that they have a maintenance responsibility for their BMPs when we close those projects, whether there's a maintenance declaration in place or a maintenance agreement with the city. And then also kind of just coordinating. I know I've had a couple instances with these larger developments working with cities. The HOAs will come into play, and sometimes they are responsible for certain maintenance of these BMPs. So kind of coordinating with the city and the HOAs when questions arise, and trying to, make sure that everyone's on the same page, because I do think oftentimes in these large developments, there might be instances where the developer comes in, they develop the site, they put in all these BMPs, and there's not good communication between the developer and an HOA group, and the HOA comes into the picture and they're kind of confused about what all these things are and what they're supposed to do. So trying to bridge that divide a little bit. So kind of more focusing on the Lexington Meadows. Again, I'm going to share my screen. And again, let me know if you can't see this. So if you can see my cursor here, this is the relative location of our office. You have 109th here, then Lexington Avenue. I wanted to bring some focus to the development to the south that is now, the large development is complete. Now they're working on subsections of the development. New properties are building different things. But this is a Lexington Meadows development that was developed last year. And just to give you a visual idea, so this was what the site looked like in 2016. This was the original ACD 5362 branch or main trunk here. And then kind of into 2020, you can see how the site has changed. This is now the new branch of ACD 5362. This is the developed site. You have a stormwater pond here, and then a lake that was also put in for this development. So this is just south of North Meadows.
Terrence?
Yes.
President Preiner, if I could interrupt. Terrence, you used the term lake, and that's you're using it in just a common way. The district can't designate a lake, nor can a landowner with their project. A lot of these projects, and I'm sure Terrence will get into this, it's about soil correction, right? They need sand to create a location, a pad to put the development. And so they would excavate what they can on site, right? That's cost efficient and effective. So they decide to dig a hole in the ground. They can call it whatever they like. It fills up with water, and it here they're calling it a lake. Probably the engineer does, just kind of common language to call it that. But it's not necessarily a DNR protected waters item.
Correct.
How do we define it then to do with the watershed? So when we look at that, and the natural thing is to say lake, do we have a different terminology in all of our memos and all of our work?
Yeah,
I'm just saying it needs to be defined in our stuff as we see it.
right. And President Preiner, Board of Managers, it is. We see it as an excavation, right? The plan will show these contours, and obviously the location of the ditch is included here. It's just an excavation of sand. We're not defining it further, if you will, to be under those other titles that other agencies use in their jurisdictions.
And I'll also,
Madam President?
Go ahead.
So I see this as a stormwater pond or infiltration basin, terms that are used in the district. But I'm surprised to see that the drainage ditch 5362 is now following the contour of that basin. In the past, whenever we've dug basins or have basins dug in the ditch right away, it's caused a problem and later on. And so I know we've shied away from doing this in some other areas. I'm surprised to see that being the ditch right away now is taking a meander more or less around the edges of that stormwater basin. And that instead of it having two sides where we could get to either side to clean it or take care of it or such, we only have one if we have one. And I don't understand why we built that big. I thought we were trying to get away from building big holding pond areas in the middle of the drainage system.
Right. President Preiner, Manager Waller, Board of Managers. Yes, Manager Waller, you are correct. We've had instances in the past where excavations occurred on the ditch. And in those, the ditch was, contained or located or remained in the center of the pond, in which case the district had no ability to access the legal location of the ditch. And it greatly raised the issue you're speaking to of how does the district address its obligation when it can't physically get to the location, and we have the bleeding of the two. Couple more things. You noted, you referenced the excavated area as a stormwater pond or any of these general terms. I'll note in this case, that pond doesn't serve any of those functions. I recall that the district was quite clear that it isn't intended to meet those. Terrence, you can show the other BMP there, which is the actual stormwater BMP. The ditch itself, the public drainage system function, is something that's confirmed by the district engineer. Here it is legally located in that location. It functions, provides all the function it is intended to. The requirement was that there be a adjacent corridor along the edge of the drainage system, allowing the maintenance of that specific location. And if Chris is on, I don't know if he has something else he would offer.
So how deep is this pond or lake or whatever this body of water that's being artificial body of water? How deep is that thing?
I would just call it an excavation, but I believe it's in the neighborhood of 30 or 40 feet.
30 or 40 feet.
It's not that deep on the edge.
That's the point here, is that the drainage on that system isn't gonna flow in the channel. It's now gonna flow through the center of that 30 or 40 feet to the outlet. I mean, the ditches, the actual ditch and flow is gonna go right through the center of that body of water. It's not gonna go around the edge like that.
Is that a problem? I guess.
Well, how do it's been a problem in the past when you couldn't really maintain it, but I mean, in essence, the drainage system isn't functioning any longer. You now have an alternative of flow in there that's different than what the drainage system is. I just, wow. I mean, they could have built that body of water there and still maintained the drainage system on both sides.
Well,
Madam President.
Go ahead, Chris.
So I'll just note a couple things on this. One is that Manager Waller is correct that the flow is not going to follow that blue line around the edge as long as the excavation is in place in its current condition. However, if, for instance, somebody else were to come in to decide that they wanted to fill that back in, which, I don't know that there would be any reason or within the district rules that would be limited in any way to occur. Then in that case, then it would be possible that the flow could be blocked off along that location in the pond. And really the reason why we had the alignment to be changed as shown here officially is that if, for instance, the sediment were to build up at any given location, for instance, near where the channel outlets into that excavated area, that the district would have a stable location with which to complete maintenance activities there. So essentially, it's following a path with which the district can access along the edge of that excavation in order to dip out if it needed to and in order to complete maintenance. And again, it also provides for an access corridor, for instance, if the district were to need to complete excavation work on the more channelized area north of the excavation, they wouldn't have to necessarily cross the ditch along 109th Street. They could actually probably access from Austin Street and walk the excavator all the way along there. So again, it provides a means with which the district can provide a narrowed right-of-way defined along the ditch. One other thing to note is that the district did not initiate any of this, nor did it complete any of the activity that in this location. All it does is simply address a petition that the landowner completed. And so when the landowner petitioned, the district had to review it underneath the statute and determine whether or not the criteria under the statute were met. And the way the statute reads is that the district must approve a realignment or a partial abandonment if the benefit is met and there is no damage occurring to the drainage system. And so when we review it, we determine that, yeah, the applicant met or the petitioner met this criteria, and therefore we recommend the change in there. Certainly the district has had concern about having open water areas that could potentially limit the district's ability to manage the drainage system along these various areas of the system. But again, if the petitioner meets the statutory requirement, the way the statute reads, the board must approve it. And so that's where we've ended up with several of these excavated areas that the board has seen in the last several years. Again, there's a very similar one just to the north of 109th Street, just on the north side of the picture here, that was approved by the board just last year. So I anticipate that you'll see more of these coming up because, again, many of these areas in the Anoka Sand Plain, it's critical that for the development that an expensive source of material to raise the land up is available, and I would anticipate we see more of these as we go. And again, we'll have to address these as we see the petitions in reviewing it per the statute and whether they meet those criteria.
Madam President,
Go ahead.
so Chris, you mean to tell me you couldn't have met the criteria of the state statute by putting that drainage right away alongside to the right instead of going to the left on the screen I see, right along there, down there where the stormwater pond is, around the edge, and made the ditch there and let them dig their body of water on the other side of that? Because that has to outlet to the ditch. You couldn't have maintained that thing, that nice straight way to right, instead of this shoe fly that you put in there around it goes off to the side. I mean, we don't have any control over that just because the petitioner came in and said, I think the ditch ought to go here. You couldn't have said, no, we want it down on more on the east side instead of on the west like that.
Madam President, Manager Waller, actually, yes, we do prefer to have it on that left side because if we were to go on the right side, we would run into conflict with the infrastructure. As you can see here, the development that has been constructed there already, it's close enough to the where the edge of the pond is that it would create challenges in order to be able to provide maintenance, and you'd inherently be cornering the district staff and their contractors that hire into a smaller corridor with which to maintain the system. It actually is preferred to have that path on the left-hand side where we have easier access and more of a open area to be working with in order to, for instance, spread spoils and that sort of thing.
Oh, I just think that's very poor.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Can
Yep.
Terrence, why don't you continue this, because I think we're going to be a little awestruck and go north here to the other side, because bringing up all kinds of questions. So can you show us, as part of your presentation, showing us what's happening to the north?
Manager Wanted, yes, it is. I can continue that discussion. I was just simply looking to show what had happened recently on the south, and
yep.
Yeah, so I will bring the focus more to the north now. So this is the North Meadows development. Again, we had Lexington Meadows down here. North Meadows is primarily this area here, and then to the further north is an existing development. So let me just look at my notes here. So what I wanted to do next, and I'll stop sharing this screen and I will share a different screen, was share a few photos of the site when it was kind of in its mass grade phase. So what you're seeing here is the contractor as they realigned the public drainage system on this section of the development, and I'll break things down on a plan sheet showing kind of the relevant features, but I wanted to show the photos first. So this is just a few photos of the realigned public drainage system main trunk of ACD 5362. These homes up here are an existing development that was permitted in 2015. And just the photos don't do it justice, but you can see kind of the mass grade that took place, I guess, starting in the fall of last year, and kind of they worked through most of the winter. You have an excavator dropping off some soil here. They're pushing things here and there. Again, this is kind of if you can imagine looking left of this berm here, that the public realigned public drainage system runs over here now. So again, just kind of a massive grade of a site, and that was a pretty continuous thing.
This is looking towards the office, right? That's
no. So this photo is actually looking to the east. So this, if you can imagine, Lexington.
okay. Yeah.
Lexington is running this way.
Okay.
And then, so now this is looking south. This is 109th, kind of back in here. Again, just a massive grade. The photos don't do it justice, but I'm pretty high up compared to where some of the work is taking place. And then just another photo to kind of share, kind of same perspective. 109th is down here. That other development is kind of in the background here. And then I mentioned during dewatering, making sure that the water that is being discharged into the ditch is clean. They had to do quite a bit of dewatering for this development and the one to the south to get their stormwater features and different basins constructed during that mass grade phase. So this photo is taken from me standing at 109th. You can kind of see the aprons here. Not the most ideal, and I know that the ditch clarity kind of alters throughout the year, even without construction. But you can see the goal of doing this, and I've done this with other sites too, is just, ideally you can clearly see my fingers through the jar. You can pretty well see them in this photo, but in instances where there are issues and it's not as clear as we would like, I do try to work with the contractors to come up with solutions upstream. They have various pumps going, and they have, for this particular development and the one to the south, they did, create temporary basins and different things during construction to kind of utilize as they're doing their work. And again, to Nick's point about soil corrections, I mean, there's a lot of that going on with these developments. It actually, I think, is a benefit versus the contractor having to haul in or remove a lot of material. They mostly, for both of these developments, have kept things on site, which is good. And then the last thing I will share is, let's see where it's at. Give me one sec. So I just wanted to show you the approved plan. Here it is. So this is just a highlight of the North Meadows development. Again, this is 109th here. You got Lexington here, existing development to the north, and the red here is what was the existing ACD 5362 main trunk, which is now abandoned. It's been filled in, and you got kind of more of a defined road here now. And this is where the realigned ACD 5362 main trunk has been set here in blue. So then that connects and that continues further south, as we kind of saw in the aerials. And then I just wanted to highlight some of the stormwater features and different basins and soil correction ponds that are a part of this development. So in green here, you have stormwater ponds / floodplain mitigation basins. I'd say that most of these have kind of reached their final grade. We haven't received as-built survey information for this development quite yet, but I anticipate that coming pretty soon because the developer has reached out and was kind of wondering about surety reduction and permit closure and things like that. And then in yellow here, these are the anticipated proposed surface infiltration basins. So you got a few different features. Again, the site is kind of split between the east and the west. And it's probably a little tough to see on here, but I did want to also highlight for both this development and Lexington Meadows to the south, we did require them to, outline a pretty extensive maintenance corridor for us to be able to get in and do the maintenance that is needed on a public drainage system. So in this particular, you kind of see zoom in a little more. You can see the hash line here, and this is, again, for the maintenance, and they actually put in a culvert crossing, and the primary reason for that was for maintenance. So we are able to access this part of the ditch that follows along this corridor here. And yeah, so this is kind of what's going on with the North Meadows development. You know, the ditch has been realigned, so this is now the new main trunk. A lot of these features have been graded and are likely at their final grade. And moving forward, currently the development, they're working on a lot of utilities because they don't have any roads in there yet. So there are some new stockpiles of sandy material, and they are doing some dewatering, which I continue to monitor. So with that, I'll open it up to any other questions about the North Meadows development or stormwater features in general.
Marcy, any further questions on this? Is that
Madam
what your
Madam
information?
President, if I could just, so on the other, the south one, where there's the 30-foot deep excavation, unless that becomes Lock Lake where it gets filled with sediment, are we even going to have to worry about maintenance of the ditch in between?
President Reiner.
Go ahead.
This is Nick. Manager Bradley, no, that was expressly pointed out in the engineer's report that the maintenance, if or any additional excavation of that excavated area is not the responsibility of the district. Historically, our communications on these types of applications haven't included that clarity. So you might imagine 10 years from now, the folks who are in the apartment building, boy, this is green and scummy and we don't like it. The lake is a problem. Rice Creek, what are you going to do about it? So the district will rely on the language in that engineer's report showing that it is not a district issue. The public drainage system is the district's issue. And as Chris noted, we have the maintenance bench along the side, and we can address our obligations from that point.
Okay. Go ahead.
So, Madam Chair, first of all, can you hear me all right? It seems like it's kind of cutting in and out. We're okay?
It's okay.
Okay. So Terrence, with this on the screen, those deeply excavated areas, will they be considered excavations also? And where am I looking? Because those suckers are pretty big, pretty deep, like right there. Yep. This, yeah. I'm looking to that must be the west of the ditch. You
Right.
have some real.
President Reiner,
Go ahead.
Manager Winan, yes, Terrence, it's in between all those green stormwater BMPs, which are designed for a specific capacity, those open areas, there we go, right there.
Yeah.
Those are borrow areas, largely dependent on the expectation of how much material is available there for the soil correction on the site. There is some review, of course, to ensure the stability of the district's interest, but those are indeed those excavations that a person may call a lake, if you will, in the future.
Okay, so what about to the top of it where there's grade, you've got grades, you called them, go up a little more, right there,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes, those areas within the green clouding, those are stormwater facilities that are designed to meet the standards of the district rules. Those have operation and maintenance obligations recorded against them.
And those.
Nick, I will say,
Wait a minute. Patrick, go ahead.
yeah, sorry to jump in there. Yeah, so there are the three larger areas here. This is one of them, Pond 301. So it's Pond 101, 201, and 301. They do refer to them as ponds here, not lakes, but interchangeable, and we see it on other projects. Those are actually not used for any stormwater management, for water quality treatment, or for rate control. So they are actually not captured under the maintenance declaration.
Okay, well, Madam Chair, I think I have a 30,000-foot question about this, especially if you've driven by it and went, oh my goodness. I mean, this was a wetland. And I mean, back where I came from, you weren't allowed to fill in wetland. And understand that you're taking 1 square foot here, that's wetland, and changing it now, making another wetland someplace else and all of that. My question to the board and to the staff is this what the applications are going to be looking like over the next 10 years? Are we going to see these, as Terrence, I think you referred to this as a large development? Is this our future? And I know we talked about it in the water management plan, but at the same time, when you actually drive by it, and it's there on the ground, it's rather struck me as just a lot of dirt work.
Can I say one thing on that too, is that because we're using up all our higher and better land, I think we are going to see more of this, because otherwise all progress and building will be stopped. So everybody's going to get more creative and try to get the same results at the end, what we're supposed to do through our rules. And there just isn't good land. I mean, the high and dry is pretty much gone around here.
So, Madam President, my hopefully last question is, so as long as we have the BMPs for the actual building, if they have these excavations that turn into mini lakes, does that help us regionally, or is that another problem we need to address? The storage.
Manager Bradley, Manager Wynett, Board of Managers, I can speak to some of these items, and then I'm sure Patrick and Nick might want to also chime in. So I think the first question was just that if we're going to see these large-scale developments continuing in the district, I would anticipate that would be a yes. I believe there's already quite a few in the hopper in the region of Blaine. I think Blaine and the Lino Lakes regions, which are two regions in my territory, if you would, are developing very quickly. They have been over the last few years. I don't see that slowing down unless there's some kind of change in the housing market. So I would anticipate that there are going to be many more of these large scale developments. And then to the second question about storage, I know for this particular development, Patrick had made the comment about there's only a few of the stormwater ponds that were used to meet our stormwater requirements. I believe they also use some of these basins to mitigate for floodplain fill, because these large developments, if there is a floodplain, obviously are going to be making alterations to the floodplain. So I think some of these excavation areas highlighted in green here are also utilized to mitigate for the fill within the floodplain.
Madam President, maybe I can add a little bit to that too. Yeah, I think Terrence explained that very well, and I would agree that I think we will continue to see these type of developments. It's I think probably one of the most efficient means that a developer can accommodate development in the flat areas, in the Onoka Sand Plain, again, in Blaine, Lino, Columbus, where you don't have the topography to be able to have, higher, drier ground for, house and commercial industrial type paths. So I think you will see it. I see it as being a means for the applicants to achieve a permit compliance. I don't see that these developments are either going to be create negative consequences or necessarily a positive benefit in management for the district. I think it's more of a neutral consequence. They're meeting the rules and they're not harming the district goals. So I think that's how they meet the permit requirements. But you again will continue to see them, and we do see that the developers often utilize these things as amenities. They like to refer to them as lakes because, they can call their office complex Lakeview, or, I mean, we've seen so many times where people have put docks out into stormwater ponds, and it's, different than what we may consider to be a lake. Certainly wouldn't be classified as a lake under DNR requirements, and we try to refrain from calling them lakes as much as possible so as not to confuse people as to their status, but the term gets used a lot by the public for these things.
But to your point, Manager Bradley, once it gets green and stinky and the mosquitoes come, we're going to get the calls.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Okay.
So
So-
another.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Marcy.
Okay, so back to the Lexington 55 and older complex that has the quote lake or excavation pond. Would you pull that map up, Terrence? And the question I would have with that is, I know it looks like there's a gas station being built on the land to will additional stormwater ponds need to be developed for that, or is that section of land now? Okay, right, thank you. Is that whole section of land served by that quote lake excavated area?
You're muted, Terrence.
Muted.
Manager Wynett, Board of Managers, I can let Patrick and Chris kind of speak to the permitting aspect of things. It's my understanding that they could utilize it and maybe will be utilizing it here and there. I know that what you see right here, this 20-043, let me just confirm that so that this site is currently being developed, and they have been installing their own stormwater features for this site. So I think it's all dependent on how they come into for application and how they're meeting the rules.
President Preiner.
Go ahead.
Manager Wynett, I'll advance that a little bit. The initial permit may establish a regional basin that we're seeing on the site there next to the excavation. Yeah, to the southwest of the roundabout. And it's recognized as it has some given capacity, and it's memorialized in the engineer's report accordingly. The next phases propose some general amount of impervious area that may or may not utilize that regional capacity. And depending on how that develops, because the owner wants to say, I'll say nimble, who might come, how might this property be used? I want to be flexible to make sure I can regain my investment and such. That may change the necessity of stormwater and such. And so generally we anchor the amount of regional capacity that's being created. As the future permits and developments come in, we look at those and look to that applicant to define, I'm using the regional basin. Then we do the technical check to make sure it's the capacity is present, the BMP is being maintained, etc. If it doesn't have the capacity, they'll need to come up with something specific to their site.
So it all depends on who gets there first. Is that how that works?
It certainly could. The BMP, the pond to the southwest of the roundabout, the owner of the property does control it, if you will. and they may have plans to share it. They could undertake financial arrangements with the neighboring developments to share it, those types of things.
Okay, and Madam Chair, I have one more question, so thank you for indulging me in that. Are we charging enough with permit fees to be managing / inspecting, reviewing these, which appear to be even much more complicated permits than a simple house establishment or something like that?
President Reiner, Manager Wynant, the general answer is no. The district's permit fees it charges are more often than not a very small portion of the cost of engineering review. These are very complex projects. On the high end, they can run, to the tens of thousands of dollars in review. Now that as I say that, I should recognize that may be the exception, but it's not unusual for us to have that kind of cost associated with permit review on these larger projects. And the fee for a project like this might be more in the $3,000 to $5,000 range. So the district does subsidize, if you will, the overall cost. A lot of cities, I would understand to establish a broad escrow account and then just draw upon it, and all the cost is put upon the applicant. That's not been the district operation to date.
One more question then about, as we're talking about permitting a little bit. Does this go for full circle, and that our permits then, when ours are closed, that the city would get a copy of that it's closed to go into the developer's file? So that at the end of the day, somebody comes in and says, well, I didn't like the way they did that. The city can look at it and say, well, this is what happened and here's what they did. It'd be nice to have a complete file somewhere.
President Preiner? Oh, I see Terrence turned on his microphone. I'll let him go first.
Okay.
President Preiner, yes. So when Rice Creek Watershed District inspectors close the permits, we routinely will include a notification to the city that the permit's being closed. I couldn't tell you that the city is maybe recognizing that, because I've certainly seen where someone might come back to me and say, is this permit closed? And I can confirm with them that it is indeed closed. For our files, we do have a permit closure memo that we fill out or draft up for every permit, no matter if there's surety or not. So in our internal files, we do have a permit closure memo that will outline, that the applicant has, satisfied the as-built requirements, for example, and note that it's being closed on this date. And then if there's surety that we have on the hand, we'll note that we're returning that surety to whoever it goes back to. So internally, our files recognize when a permit is being closed, and we do provide that notification to the applicant and subsequent city.
Okay. I just kind of like to, again, make a point about that at our city county meeting, just so they start to realize that they have the information. So it might be good. Anyway, anything else on this subject? Thank you, Marcy, for bringing it all forward.
Madam President,
Go ahead.
I have a couple of final comments here. First of all, thank you very much, Patrick and Terrence, for this presentation today. It was definitely eye-opening. I prefer the drainage system to be maintained and the right-of-way to be maintained as it was on the north side of 109th and not on the south. I don't see why that system couldn't, it was much more to the east. Even though they want to put a development in there, that it could incorporate the amenity as has been done in Hugo with bridges over it and creek streams like on ditch number 3. Without having to alter the right of way in such a radical manner and such. I do think, though, Patrick, that when there are advantages that you're not explaining totally to the stormwater conveyance system of the stormwater ponds. They provide a rate control and a volume control, not just a water quality control. And those are important items so that we make sure our system isn't overloaded. That's one of the things I think that Terrence was bringing out when he's talking about dewatering and how the system gets overloaded from dewatering and such. So with my view that we're here to make sure the stormwater conveyance system works, those stormwater ponds are integral to the volume control, rate control, and the storage capacity, as Manager Bradley brought out. They're very important. And you should emphasize that, I believe, is just as along with the phosphorus control and the sediment control to them, and because they are maintenance that way. And then one of the things that this whole program does is our rules create an unfunded mandate on some of these cities. This is what Manager Marcy's getting to. Sooner or later, somebody's going to say, hey, come in here, clean this mess up. And we don't have a mandate. We've mandated this to be created, some of these stormwater ponds, but we don't have a funding mechanism that's in place yet in order to help maintain them. And they do fill up over 30 years. I've seen some of those in Hugo that have they're 30, 40 years old now. They're 30 feet deep that have fish in them and such. And these are stormwater ponds. They're not bodies of water or excavations, as you call them. And those things, we need to provide some kind of a plan in the future on that. I also agree with Manager Marcy that I think this is what she's saying. I mean, correct me, I'm sure she will. That we're not charging enough for the permits, and that we should go to a system more like the cities do, where the developer pays for that and goes on. I think that's an important point. It would free up dollars that we are subsidizing for other important uses here in the district. And let me see now, dewatering. I just want to make sure that we maintain our stormwater ditch capacity, and the way that project has been done with the meandering ditch to the west, south of 109th over here. I don't think that's a really good way to do that. I prefer the north part where it's distinct. It's there, you can see it, it's not a problem. But thank you very much for the presentation. And I appreciate, at first I didn't really understand where Manager Marcy was going with it, but once I saw the two different north and south and how that drainage system was maintained, that looks pretty ugly on the south side. It could be done on the north side, as we have done in the past, with making the amenity of that stream available. It's just as important as this, quote, excavation body of water. Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to district engineer update and timeline. Anything new, Chris, that you'd like to let us know about today?
Madam President, I don't have anything to point out, but certainly can answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Chris? Seeing none, we'll go to administrator updates.
Yes, President Pryor, Board of Managers, just note our discussion at Monday's workshop on COVID operations. We'll work towards those May board meetings for the managers to meet in person and the rest to remain the same as we explore the opening up. Board staff will remain remote and the district offices close. We're updating the preparedness plan to reflect the board gathering and to meet in the conference room. It's notable that when we do that, the camera in the office, as you see Manager Waller there, will be much the same, just showing a single view of all of you, and you won't have this Brady Bunch type arrangement, and staff and anyone wanting to visit will be remote, and you will see them in the Brady Bunch way, but not yourselves. Yeah, and then staff can remote in and such. I'll also note from the Monday's workshop, the new position in the we jumped into the broader issue of job descriptions and other positions, as well as the every 2 years, we look at that market analysis of the district's salaries and such. I'll continue to seek options from companies on how they might assist us in getting that salary study completed. We'll want to have our district job descriptions in order to do that. I'm certainly hoping to have some options for the board on that proposed 26 meeting. When not, we'll get it before you as soon as possible. So the only other item I'll note is everyone should recall that tonight is Ramsey Washington JD1 informational meeting at 6:30. That is a virtual event.
Madam President,
Go ahead.
for tonight's meeting, I'll be meeting you by telephone. I won't be here in the boardroom, just so that you know that. Of course, there's other extenuating circumstances that have come up since Monday for a good reason not to be out after dark.
Sad.
Yes. Okay, anybody else? We'll go to the manager's.
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's
This is
right.
Manager's. I just wanted to thank Patrick and Terrence for their presentation. Like Manager Waller said, it was good to see the whole system, how it tracks at once and how one action relates to another. And I would also say it looks like a lot of inspections, Terrence.
Job security.
Marcy, is that your update? While we're on-
That's my update. That's my
Okay.
update.
That's your update. Okay, Manager Waller, update.
Well, first of all, Terrence, I expected you to be in the office today. So I brought this to show you and encourage your interest in deer hunting. So I'm sorry you're not here to have a choice. I found this in the yard. And so, actually my sister found it in the yard. We don't have the other matching set, you know, they're kind of like teeth. They come out one at a time, you know. Anyways, but I did attend the Washington County Consortium the other day by this Hollywood Squares virtual meeting, and it was all about plants. And President Pryor, you'll remember the plant situation. And the presenter there was enthusiastic about it, and preserving special plants that are lost. And some of the statements I heard made were not credible statements. For example, the presenter said, I have discovered species that are gone. They're no longer here. Well, if they're no longer here, you can't discover them. You know, if they've disappeared from the earth. And being a wildlife botanist, one of the things he didn't explain was these seeds are in the ground, and there's billions and billions of them, and under the right circumstances they come back. Just have a cornfield and let it go for a couple of years, and you'll find out what's in the ground that grows there. So one of the things that I found a great emphasis was being put on the city of Blaine. And oftentimes these enthusiasts about preserving special species and such, you know, as we experienced with, can add hundreds of thousands of dollars of cost. And really, that, you know, it's a difficult situation. So while it was a great thing to learn about, I just felt that it doesn't really blend well with the missions, always with the other things that we have to do, such as find places for people to build shelters called houses. You know, it's and finally, I did observe the March 9th, 2021 House Finance Committee meeting and listened to the last 18 minutes of it or so. It was about whatever happened down there on Heron Lake Watershed. Some interesting information. 4 managers have been replaced by 3 counties, something about $10,000 in costs. And then, of course, this purpose of this is to create this legislation that says that would make what was ever done down there perfectly legal. I think what you have is a lot of well-meaning individuals, but they just like with the exotic plants species that have to be protected, you can get a little bit overboard on that. And so it's interesting. I think one of the comments made there was that this money was spent and none of these individuals have an election certificate. An interesting comment about that. Mostly in our state, large amounts of money that are spent. You know, that would be 2 of our fiscal year collections, $10 million, and are done, or the school district or the county or the everybody else there's an election certificate involved in. So that's all I have for comment at this time, Madam President. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Manager Bradley.
Nothing.
Manager Wagaman. Steve?
I do not have anything. I did attend the CAC meeting, but there was nothing earth-shattering to report there. There was a little questioning on the one permit. They were disappointed that they weren't able to put in some kind of a feature for plantings, but that was all worked out, and so that's it. I don't really have anything to report.
Okay, thank you. And I don't have anything to report today either, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Manager Waller?
Aye.
Manager Wynant?
Yes.
Manager Bradley?
Yes.
Manager Wagaman?
Yes.
And Manager Priner, yes. And thank you all for the meeting, and we'll see you soon.
See you tonight.
Oh, yeah, later.
Really soon.
Really, really soon.
Yeah, really soon.